I'm SIFU Nico. This is my podcast. I have Ty on here. I'm going to let him tell you guys all about himself. This is Tye Tonkin, one of my old good friends. Not that he's old, but he's a good friend, right? Ty, tell us about yourself, man. What do you do and where you at and all that stuff?
Well, I'm located in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a martial arts instructor and a gym owner here. I own a gym called Sanda Fighting Arts, which is actually just outside of Boston in Watertown, just next to Cambridge. I've been doing martial arts my entire life. I've been doing Chinese martial arts for about 25 years or so, doing traditional Kung Fu and Tai Chi, and as well as doing my kickboxing and Sanda. And I also do Shuai, Jiao, and Bohk, which is Chinese and Mongolian wrestling. And I own a gym here out in the Boston area for Sanda and Shuai, Jiao, and Bohk for all the Chinese combat sports.
Is that where you're at now?
Yes. Yep. We are in the gym currently. I'm here 10 to 12 hours a day.
I get it.
Every single day.
Yeah, I'm either here in my studio or I'm at my gym, so it's it's one of the two. That's a nice boxing gym you have, like a boxing ring you have. It's really nice, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we looked for, to open this gym. We looked for about 3 years for a space in this area, with certain things in mind. Like I wanted to have a ring, something that we could prep students for if they were interested in getting into fighting and things like that. Especially in the Boston area, I mean, kind of everywhere, it's difficult to find space, right?
It is.
It's difficult to find open space, and especially in like the New England area, everything is old construction with new construction on top. So there's a lot of posts. There's a lot of like support. So it's hard to find a space that has like a full 20 by 20 open
area
space,
for
no barrier. Yeah. So
right.
That was like one of the things when I was putting together the idea for opening this gym, as I always wanted to have like a nice ring. It's a 20-foot ring. It's,
oh, wow.
It's a great tool to prep people for fights and things like that. And I mean, it's just fun to be able to teach lessons and stuff in there and to put some students in there when you need to get them out of the way and things like that.
Do you ever do like host your own little sparring matches or anything like that? Or
so we haven't done anything. That's definitely on the agenda, sort of what we would like to do with this space. But I mean, we're pretty much brand new here. We tried to open this gym in 2020, which obviously
didn't pan out so hot.
It didn't pan out the way that we expected. We had signed for the space originally, like the end of, I think it was like October of 2019, knowing that there would be a lot of build out because there was actually one bigger space, like this whole wall back here wasn't there. So it was like one big space and they were going to subdivide it, but they had listed it. I said, oh, well, once it's all, we don't really need much. We just need a box, like a shell, right? So we signed the lease, said, okay, there's going to be, whatever, 9 months of construction, but then we're going to, have the space secure. Nobody else is going to take it. And I was like, yeah, I don't need to, we don't need a space. It's not like we were getting booted out of where we were before. I was running programs at another school. And I could stay there as long as needed. But then by the time the space actually got finished, we were in like the dead of this pandemic.
Right.
And so we occupied the space and basically didn't turn a wheel for like a year. We did some online stuff. Basically this setup, I had this like beautiful backdrop that I would teach classes from. Like one day you can come and be in the ring and use all this beautiful brand new equipment, but it's just not today. So we did a bunch of online stuff and
just a bunch of teasing.
Like that was basically it. And we did that for months. And then by the end of 2020, it wasn't sustainable. We had kind of burned through all of our like cushion and stuff like that. So we ended up closing. I took everything out of here. And kind of worked it out with our landlord because we love this space. Like I said, it took me about 2 years to find a space that was like open and manageable and, kind of had all the boxes checked off for things that we'd want out of a space. And then we had kind of worked out the deal. So this past August, we had to decide whether we were going to re-sign and reoccupy or just surrender the space entirely. So this was in now 2021. We went like a year without actually having any kind of public opening.
My gosh.
And then we opened our doors publicly for the first time this August. So the beginning of August was our
good
adventure. So we definitely want to have like some exhibitions and kind of like smoker matches and stuff here,
Yeah.
like in-house stuff. We want to invite some other groups and schools that I've been talking to for a while, for a couple of years.
I think it would be a killer space. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, we really, I mean, we've got a nice facility. We have like 3 bathrooms, a couple of changing rooms. Like we have a good amount of space here.
Oh, good.
So we definitely want to do events, and we want to do, workshops and seminars and stuff like that. Still a little bit of a weird time, especially we're, so close into the city.
Right,
We're just figuring out.
You're working on the transition. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Does it make sense to start scheduling that stuff now, or should we wait a little longer? So, but yeah, that's definitely in the plans. And then again, we've got the facilities for it. We have a nice big ring and enough mat space. We can bring people in here to do some events. So that's on the horizon.
So what is, for the viewers out there that have never heard this, because I appeal to a large amount of people in the fitness industry and the martial arts industry and all that stuff. What is Sanda compared to kickboxing? Or you can just tell me what Sanda is, and people can do their own from there. So can you give me a little insight?
Sure. So Sanda or Sansho, it's the same thing, just a different word for it. Literally, Sanda means like random or randomized striking, right? Da is like the striking element. And it basically translates overall to like kickboxing or free fighting. It's a Chinese kickboxing style, essentially. It's, a style that is built around a rule set, like a lot of other combat sports. The way that you compete kind of informs how you train, but the foundation for what we do is all based in traditional Chinese martial arts. So Kung Fu and Tai Chi Chuan is the really all the movements and principles that we do from traditional Chinese martial arts is just being applied in like a competitive way, being able to do it as a kickboxing sport. So you wear boxing gloves, closed gloves for most competitions. And there are 3 elements in Sanda. There's a striking element, that's where the Da is. There's a kicking element, Ti, you can use your legs. And there's Shuai, there's a wrestling element. And that's kind of the thing that sets it apart a little bit from other kickboxing styles, K1, low kick, and like Muay Thai and things like that, is there's a big emphasis on the wrestling, on the Shuai. So all sweeps, takedowns, and throws, those are all legal for the style. So it leans a little bit into kind of like MMA. It's almost like a style of MMA. Yeah, without any real groundwork. So in terms of like BJJ and stuff like that, anything that has like submissions, the way that the rule set is for Sanda is when you throw somebody, when they hit the ground, you break, you stand back up, and you keep going. Traditionally, it's done on a liai Thai.
Yeah.
What's that?
Are those, is it a point system?
So most competitions work on like a point system. So you might start with 10 points and someone's going to get a 10 and a 9 or a 10 and an 8 for the round. But the way that they judge the round, throws usually score the biggest. And then how you throw also depends on how like clean the throw is. It depends on how much you score. So if you throw somebody, but you kind of fall on top of them, you might get like 1 or 2 points. If you throw someone, but you stay standing, but they just kind of like touch a knee or, their arm goes down, you might only get 1 or 2 points. But if you can throw somebody where they, totally tip 90 degrees and land flat and you stay standing, you can get up to 3 points for your throw. So the throws, the wrestling component usually scores the biggest, why there's a big emphasis on it. And then, again, it depends on the promotion that you're competing in. Kicks will usually score sort of in the middle, like 2 points, and then any strikes that land will score about 1 point. And it's a mix of, who's controlling the round and things like that. So
nice. I had the pleasure of sparring with someone in Sanda, and that was fun.
Yeah, it's a blast. I like it.
Yeah, I think it gave me a good because I love to spar. I don't just stick in my Tai Chi. I have to take out and try and test. That way you know what works, what doesn't work. But it was great because they were trying trips. And to me, in my head, I was like, that's unusual because I thought it'd just be kickboxing.
Yep.
And so when they were trying the trips, I would use my push hands just to kind of not get thrown. So it was good. It was a great training exercise for me, and I really loved that. So do people? Is there a pro level of Sanda, or is this more, or is it an introduction into something like you can use this to take this to MMA or something like that?
So right now, at least in the US, there really isn't any like pro level Sanda. There is outside of the States. So if you wanted to be like, if you're an aspiring Sanda practitioner and you wanted to compete and you've done a lot of the amateur stuff that is around in the US, but you want to get bigger promotions and you want to go and make like a pro career out of it. Right now, anyways, to my understanding, there isn't really any pro leagues happening. There used to be, but just with interest and things changing and going in other directions, there wasn't enough competitors and there wasn't enough promotions putting on events to kind of keep it going. But like in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was actually quite popular. So in terms of pro stuff, you'd have to go searching for it a little bit.
Sure.
How far would I, but we do have a steady amount of competition in the States, for an amateur level. And there's a lot of like tournament style, you go for a weekend and you're wearing chest protectors and headgear. You might get to, fight a few times, which is a really great introduction. But right now what you're seeing is more people using maybe the base of Sanda to go into kickboxing, like K1 rules or Muay Thai, modified Muay Thai, or MMA. Because again, it's a very good style having a wrestling component mixed with striking. So it blends really well into, if you you also have a ground game and you're working out strategies for MMA, it's a fantastic base. So you do see a lot of folks kind of starting to make that transition. They may train Sanda as their primary striking that mixes with wrestling, and then have some sort of ground game, and they're applying it in MMA.
Yeah. So how do you infuse Tai Chi into this? I mean, I can imagine how, but how, tell the viewers how you would.
So in terms of like application, right? A lot of the traditional Chinese martial arts, Tai Chi Chuan included, the foundational training is not necessarily specific to a movement. Like we know this, right? Every style has their own version of grass sparrow's tail or single whip or whatever it may be as a posture, Peng Lu Jian. But like the underlying principle that you're trying to work on with those things in terms of root and body connectivity, it really doesn't matter how you're applying it, like in a sport sense, right? It's a fundamental that is needed and can be expressed in different ways. So we have a lot of traditional trainings, even just a basic Tai Chi walk, learning how to, balance and root and feel your stability, how to connect into like energetics a little bit more in terms of how your body connectivity is working for whatever mechanics you're using for striking or kicking. But I will say the number one place that I find that it comes out is on the level of sensitivity needed, especially in the wrestling. So of course we do Sanda, but we also do Shuai, which is like a jacketed wrestling style, and Bohk, which is a Mongolian jacketed wrestling style, sort of like the ancestral wrestling style. And the biggest thing that we find, it's in the application of that wrestling, which certainly transfers into Sanda. It's just got gloves instead of a jacket, is understanding how to relax, right? And you hear this at any level of Tai Chi, whether it's Tai Chi for health or for combat or push hands or whatever it is the concept of relaxing, and that can mean a lot of different things. But the real sort of application of knowing how to soften the body to get out of certain positions, how to yield and move and neutralize pressure that's coming in instead of just fighting against it. And that is stylistically how Shuai Jiao and Bohk really, really apply. It's about being relaxed and being sensitive and knowing where the pressure is, where the movement is, and how to move with it instead of just fighting against it. And then sticking and adhering, being able to stay connected so that if someone's pushing away, you're not just, grabbing on, especially with gloves, you know how to float and stick and stay connected to their arms and kind of feel their center and feel their movement. And all of that is like a direct correlation to how we train push hands and You know, what we're talking about when we think application for our sequence and the postures in our sequence. So like, again, like 80–90%, honestly, of the concepts that we do in our wrestling, whether it's coming out in just the wrestling or the wrestling component in Sanda, is really pulling from the same principles that, you know, I've been taught and I've been teaching for traditional Tai Chi trend for ages. It's just sort of looking at it from maybe a different scope and applying it in a different format.
So do these Sanda guys do the form, or are you taking elements of the form and you know what I mean?
A little of both.
Oh,
So,
okay. Nice.
So
I like that.
My approach, right? My first and foremost, my background is in the traditional arts, right? When I was younger, I started in, you know, Kung Fu and Tai Chi. That's what really interested me. And then I remember one of my first coaches saying like, oh, if you want to be able to apply it, you should really try the kickboxing and, you know, kind of get that combat experience and the sparring experience, and it'll help you, you know, bridge that gap quicker. And I fell in love with that as well. But the whole idea sort of behind this gym was to take all of that traditional stuff and package it in a way that's a little bit more maybe modern in what people are looking for when they're thinking about application. Right now, I feel like in the martial arts community, combat sport tends to take the center stage a little bit, and people that want to be active in that sense and in that applicable sense. So we really package this as like, oh, it's kickboxing and wrestling. When you come in, you can see the bags, you see the ring, you know, the aesthetic is of maybe a regular combat sport gym. But when people start to train, they realize, oh, there's like a little deeper level. And it's like, why do you move differently? Why is your movement, you know, a little bit more round, or why are you going a little bit lower? Like, why are you moving your center, your hips the way you do? And then you go like, because it's actually the traditional stuff. It's all the Tai Chi, right? And
that's your interjection there.
Yeah. So you got to hide it. You got to teach them Tai Chi without letting them know.
That little sprinkle,
Yes, exactly. That's exactly like, oh, it's Tai Chi. And they go, oh, well, what's that all about? Maybe they you know, they don't know. Sure. So I would say in terms of our student base, I have probably a 50-50 split right about now, where some folks are just coming because they're looking for the combat sports stuff. They're looking for Sanda or kickboxing, you know, any kind of striking, and wrestling. They, you know, whether it's judo or sambo or what, you know, Shuai, Jiao, whatever it is, they're just looking for more combat stuff that they just come and, you know, I tell them, oh, this is actually a principle from Tai Chi, or this, you know, posture is coming from Grass Sparrow's tail, or whatever the, you know, name of our Tai Chi postures are and how they apply. And then about another half of those folks get really interested in the fact that it's coming from that traditional stuff, and it's coming from our form, it's coming from our sequence, and they want to start learning. Again, they want to burn the candle a little bit at both ends as well. So they go, oh, like, how can I improve my my movement and my softness and things like that? And I go, oh, well, you can start with the sequence. It's a very simple thing that you can practice, and there's a base qigong that you can play with, you know, exercises that we're taking directly from our curriculum for our traditional stuff. And I teach them that, and they love it. So I kind of hide it in there, right? So they might not know they're learning Kung Fu and Tai Chi until, like, you know, they've been here a little while, and I go, gotcha. You've been learning the whole time. I've been teaching you Yang style Tai Chi. You didn't even know it.
Yeah, good. I love that. In a way, I've done something similar, and I find it to be more effective. You know, we have to change it up a little bit from the traditional days, because for some reason, not as many people, and this is my perspective, not as many people know they need Tai Chi. They think they need something else, which is their preference, but Tai Chi is a great supplementary, you know, additive to whatever it may be, whether it's your breath work, whether it's your posture, your balance. I think that is something that, whether you're MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxer, whatever, you can always benefit from Tai Chi's, you know, take that supplemental stuff out of it, the breath and the balance and stuff. So yeah, I think what you're doing is great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Definitely.
It's a little bit of an experiment. Again, I've had this idea for opening a gym like this, where that was the foundation, but it was sort of packaged in a certain way. And I'm trying to update it so that it feels a bit more modern in the training and in the approach of how the information is maybe explained or presented. And, we'll see in another maybe 10 years sort of
There
how
you
it
go.
does and what it influences. Cause,
Yeah.
it's a bit new. And other people I think do the same, but it's new for me, of
Well,
course. I've been
I
teaching the
think,
traditional stuff forever.
yeah, I think you have a niche, and I think that niche is not something many people are doing. I did Sanda like a very short time, and I enjoyed it. But then I went just to kickboxing and Tai Chi. I just went straight there, and I enjoyed that as well. But I noticed that the Sanda, was related more to my push hands.
Yeah.
Because I was able to actually utilize my root against someone trying to trip me. So that made more sense. And it was more realistic. So where I'm going with this is I think that in 10 years or whatever, that this is something that can be invested into, like something like the UFC or Bellator or something of that nature, because those guys are doing the full thing. They're doing jujitsu and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
there's some guys that need to work on that throw, that takedown, those, and all that. And you don't really get that from kickboxing. So I think that Sanda could be the next best thing, but we got to figure out how to get it out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, the idea of promoting and like even again, the way that we promote the gym is more just like it's striking and wrestling, right? It's kickboxing and wrestling. Because that's really what people know and are coming for. And then they go, oh, like who's Sanda? I'm like, well, Sanda is a style, right? It's a system, and it's something that's unique. And that kind of interests people. Like, oh, I don't know that I've really ever heard of that. So there's layers to it, like kind of what is out in that mainstream, and then the more specific, like, all right, the style of striking that you're doing maybe is Sanda. And then again, there's like another layer of where are the principles that you're training come from, right? And it's our Kung Fu and our Tai Chi. So it's definitely an interesting, I guess, like wave of how people find it and how people are viewing sort of the applicability of what they're doing. And certainly there's other folks that are doing this. Like if you ever watch like One Championship, which is a huge fight promotion that's mostly overseas. It's not really here in the state. But they do MMA, kickboxing, and Muay Thai, and some other crazy events. And they do a really, really amazing job. They're one of the biggest in the world. And you see actually a lot more folks going into the kickboxing and MMA that have like a Wushu Sanda base. There's a few that are here in the States and a few that are, doing stuff in the UFC and things like that. So like once in a while you'll hear like, oh, this is a Sanda fighter in the UFC or in Bellator. And like, oh, that's crazy. But there's certainly not a lot of them. And there's just really not a lot of those gyms. But like Team Lakai is a gym out of the Philippines, and almost all of their base is Sanda. But they do an excellent job of making it very modern and making it apply to MMA. So they've got a bunch of folks that are competing for MMA and like One Championship and have, won belts and titles, championships with that base. So it's there's like a thread there, right? That is kind of all throughout the world. It's just a matter of maybe pulling it this way a little bit and trying to shed a little bit of light from some other groupings other than folks that maybe have already heard of Tai Chi and Kung Fu, Sanda or Shuai.
If I'm brand new and I walk through your door and I say I want to learn, what is the first things that you're going to be teaching me?
So for everything that we do, the very first few things that you do is like stance and guard. So it's learning how to develop root. And again, this comes right from our traditional stuff. Like when I was a kid, first thing I did in Kung Fu class was stances. First thing I did in Tai Chi was Wu Ji. Stand like this, sink down, and work your Ma Bu.
Stay there for a while.
Yeah, right. It's okay. We'll see you in 6 months. Like that was always the joke, right? All right, Ma Bu, horse stance. See you in 6 months.
Bye.
But that's really it. Is just teaching people how to get their legs under them a little bit, and how developing root is sort of your foundation for moving and then throwing punches, getting your power from the ground. Again, another principle that we have out of our Chinese martial arts: power from the ground, direct it by the hip, manifest it out into the hand. Soften the quads, soften the hips in the center to be able to move things smoothly, use a lot of circular motion, try to get rid of excess muscular tension.
Right.
And that's honestly like the first day, first week of people coming in is try to get your legs under you, try to build up a little strength, teach them how to hold their hands just to stay safe, bring their guard up, and how to start regulating. So for us, we have 3 basic things that we regulate right away. First one is breathing. You got to learn how to breathe, right? Tai Chi, it's the same thing. You breathe in, you breathe out, whatever your movement is, your intention on using your breath as part of that is very integrated. And this is certainly the same thing that we do in Sanda or Shuai Jiao, is learning how to regulate the breath. That way you're not tiring out, you're able to have more efficient movement, all the amazing benefits that come from breathing, as simple as it sounds, right? You and I both know that's a huge thing, and it's a lifelong practice. So breathing, that's number 1. Your stance, your guard, you learn how to regulate your breath. Next thing we think about is in that stance is learning how to sink down. So for us, our power again comes from the ground. And because there's that wrestling element in everything that we do, you have to be rooted. So learning how to develop root.
Are you talking about just soft knees? Or are you actually getting people down into a little bit of a lower stance?
Both. So in terms of like the active height of your stance, you want to think of it like this. If someone's going to shoot in and grab your legs and you're up tall, even if you're, relaxed, you have a lot longer to drop down and stop someone. If you're a little bit lower and wider down to the ground, again, like a lot of the traditional stances are, you're able to defend something that's coming in low, and you have a bit more dynamic movement. So squatting down, dropping down, that's actually getting the body low, but getting it low in a good alignment and not loading your knees and not, loading your back, and being able to actually create, develop, and move root. We do focus a lot on root and understanding root and what that is and how it can be dynamic.
Right.
So that's like the second thing right away is you guys.
It's a lot, and it's good because it's a really foolproof system that we've been doing for years and years. But I love hearing that you're applying it to just someone literally standing in a fighting stance.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
I'm very impressed by that.
Yeah, we focus on it a ton because again, that's how I was traditionally trained, right? I focused on stance and movement for years, even before I really understood application. We may talk about it, but it took years to develop that stuff. And there's a value in that, that I really wanted to transfer. Again, change it and package it in a way that I think is a little bit marketable for now, but is still preserving that, the importance of that. And I mean, I have bricks. I have people stand on bricks to develop root and balance, and literally stand here, soften the knees, squat down, and hold this stance. And people like it because it's different, right?
It is.
It's something that they didn't know they wanted to do because they just think of like a traditional gym and strength and conditioning. You start talking about stance and go, okay, stand on a brick, 2 bricks upright like this. And they're like, what? And you're like, yeah, it's a traditional training. I used to do it all the time, sit here, do all these movements, stack more bricks. And it's different and it's interesting, but it comes right from all of our traditional stuff that we do and all the stuff I used to do. And I have people do that right away. That's how we develop stance and root. That's how we start anyways. Exercises and literally just how do you get your stance and how do you get your base footwork. And from there, our last regulation is your center, turning everything from your center. As my traditional teacher, Dr. Yang, always says is, turn your butt all the time, turn your butt. So trying to actually get the center from that stance soft, right? And I think that's, again, another big traditional thing where for us, at least, and in my experience, you can start building maybe strong legs in a stance, but it can create sort of a stiffness in that lower back and the hips. And something that I found in my training when I started doing Tai Chi, maybe a few months to a year into my first training of Shaolin Kung Fu, is learning how to soften that and soften the claw, like the hip basket and the lower back, and how to roll and soften. And just get that like smoother, even if it's just for movement's sake or spine health or hip health. It's a very important thing for us in the application, like I said, of being relaxed, to build the sensitivity to have like good responses and reactions and being able to counter, stick, and follow. So loosening up the hips and getting the hips. And this is, again, something that in a boxing gym or a Thai boxing gym or kickboxing or whatever, you're going to hear it all the time, right? Turn your hips to get your punch, right? That's the connection. You're not just moving from the arm, you have to get body connectivity. And again, that's all we've been talking about for however many years in our Tai Chi. Why not bring it into this? It's we're all talking the same stuff.
I see the benefit here because I noticed that whenever and this is not a attack or ploy, but I noticed kickboxing was more elementary, as far as the explanation. It could be a complete dominator in that sport, but the way that it's spoken down, okay, turn your hip, all right, you got the punch, good, all right, pivot that front foot with that 3, okay, cool, make sure you have this at 90 degrees. It's all very external. So what I think I'm seeing and hearing is that Sanda, those 3 regulations really allow you to, no matter what layer of question someone asks, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper.
Oh, absolutely.
If they want to know the structure, you got that. If they want to know the filling, you've got that. If they want to know the why, you've got that. You can continue that rabbit hole, and then it eventually leads to Tai Chi, But
like I said, you got to trick them into learning it a little bit because they get interested, and then you go, I gotcha. You're learning Tai Chi the whole time. It's like a Scooby-Doo episode. You take the mask off, and it's Tai Chi Chuan. It was it was Tai Chi. If it wasn't for meddling kids, I would have known that right away.
Has anyone fallen off the bricks?
Yep. Yeah, we start small, so we start with a brick flat this way, and then we stack them up, and like a brick and a half, and then 2, and you try to work your way up to 3 or 4, which is very difficult.
It is,
but in the beginning, certainly people fall off the bricks. But it's very low, and we try to make sure ankles are safe and things like that.
Yeah, of course.
We warm everything up, but the idea is you really do quickly learn to build the sensitivity in the feet and in the legs, and learning how to drop the energy down, however you want to word it, through the Yongquan or Yongquan breathing, because when you fall a couple times when the bricks are low, you're more aware of getting that feeling in your legs and that energy dropping down. And then when you have a brick and a half, you're even more sensitive to this, like, I don't want to fall off these bricks. So my focus and my feeling develops deeper. And when people start to like teeter a little bit, they know to step off. And then by the time you're on 2 bricks, it's like, again, it's even more, they're developing that feeling. And when you step off of it, you definitely know what's going on.
Right. They're getting some sensitivity. What I like is whenever you fall off, you can still maintain that Tai Chi body by kind of loose, and don't get stiff and fall back, but kind of loosen up a little bit, That's always a nice touch.
For sure. The stakes are just high enough that you have to pay attention to the training. Yeah. But in the beginning, it's also low enough that you can step off and, it's a couple of inches, but you quickly learn I got to relax, drop my center, and get my foot out. Otherwise, I'm just going to, fall over like a board. So it really takes care of itself. That's exactly what I want to have students get out of training like that, some of the traditional methods. And it works like gangbusters. I mean, I've seen huge improvement in people that have come in that had no martial arts experience. And I've seen improvement from people that have come in that, have combat experience and competition experience and are just looking to get something new. And it's a different take. And they develop that feeling and that root, pretty quick from training like that.
So have you noticed in your years, how many years have you been training? Training people?
Training people?
Yeah.
I probably started assisting about 20 years ago.
Okay.
I've been teaching full-time for about 12 years, I think.
How old are you? I've never asked you that.
Yeah, I'm old. I'm young and old enough at the same time. Don't let the grays fool you. I've been doing this for since I was young. We'll say that.
All right.
Not too old. I still got my youth in me.
You got a little spry in your step, a little something.
Yeah. The grays are just because it's that all the energy. Like my Super Saiyan.
Yeah. I get it. That's your ultra instinct. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You got the silver.
I know all about Dragon Ball Z. Don't get me started. So.
But yeah, I've been
Yeah.
teaching, like seriously teaching for about 12 years.
All right.
I think in 2010, I opened my first school under my own name in Vermont. And that was only open for a couple of years. It was a very small little studio. And then I taught in various places. I moved out to Chicago, which I think I was living in Chicago when I met you.
Yeah, that's when I met you.
Doing all the competition stuff kind of through the Midwest and out in California and stuff. And I was training out in California. So I was like bopping back and forth from working at a gym there and going out in California and coming back. And then I moved back to this area in 2014, I want to say, and started teaching full-time for the branch school here that was under my traditional lineage, Young's Martial Arts Association.
Nice.
And then I had started the Sanda Fighting Arts program, I think the next year, 2015, out of a community center that I was like an assistant athletic director for the city. Yeah. And it was literally a little teeny program in the back room. We like laid out some mats and I got a heavy bag. It could house maybe like 6 people. And we just did our thing for years until the school I was teaching at moved to a bigger location, and I combined it, and then that grew again until I was able to open up my own. So
it seems like you've always had a good community and family feel to it. You know, you're building with each other. They're helping you guys out.
Yeah.
Where I was going with that, asking the experience and stuff, is what do you find harder to teach? Someone how to block and guard, or someone how to punch and kick?
Ooh, great question. All right, let me think about it.
Right.
Block and guard or punch and kick. I mean, kind of the easy answer out of this is it depends, right? Like people come in with different bases. So some people very naturally pick up the mechanics for striking, but maybe don't have the body mechanics for blocking and defending. Right. Some people have like a really harsh output for striking, and like you really got to chisel that down, and it takes a long time, but their body is, built very well to be solid and firm for basic defense. So the easy answer, like I said, is I think it really depends on the person, but if I had to choose, I would say it's a bit easier to teach very basic defense, or I'm sorry, very basic offense with striking and kicking. Yeah. And it's a little bit tougher for people to get a basic feel for proper defense.
I was hoping you would say that, because I've noticed that it's tougher to get this guy a long time ago, don't know his name, don't remember him. It's a anonymous quote, but he's like, he was like, you can always teach someone how to punch, but it's so difficult to teach someone how to defend themselves. And it took me a second to understand what he's talking about. I'm like, I guess you're right, because I can walk up to literally any person on the street and say, punch me, and they'll know what I'm talking about. But I can't walk up to anyone on the street and say, slip me, slip to the left, slip to. They may not know what slip means, or they may not even understand the coordination of separating the upper and lower, or something like that. Yeah. So I started really delving into that, and then your 3 what was it? Not reactions.
Oh, regulations.
Regulations. Yeah. Sorry.
You think you try to regulate.
Your 3 regulations reminded me that the defense is always the toughest one to train someone, for me, in my experience, and what I taking from yours, I guess, too, is the defense is always toughest because now you're dealing with reactionary skills, right? Yeah. As opposed to where I'm jabbing and I'm creating the control at some points, But now if you jab, I might need to go back an inch, or slip to the slide, or pivot, or twist the butt, like you were saying, yep. And move off the center line. My dog was saying something back there. Can you see? Chi-Chi.
Hey, just
Little
chilling.
puppy.
I thought it was part of the blanket. I could see the foot.
Yeah,
sticking out.
now it looks
Yeah, it's a
like
black and white blanket. It's an interesting pattern.
she shook her head or something. So I was like, but yeah, so I think defense is tough because it takes a lot. You're having to coordinate a larger amount of your body. What would be the first guard that you would teach? Because you said that those three regulations is good for stances, and then what do you get into as far as guard? Are you teaching high, side, slips, rolls, stuff like that?
For sure. Yeah, so for us, like our basic fighting position is like a lot of striking guards. The hands are up, the hands protect the head and chin, the elbows protect the body. So elbows are down, body is round, chin is down. And
sounds so much like Tai Chi principle.
Yeah, so of course, because it is. We have a bladed body position, so we try not to be too terribly square. And then in terms of our defense, so we break down kind of somewhat of a hierarchy of defense. The first sort of line of defense that we look at that I try to build out for students is how to shield or shell. So bringing the hands up to what we call a high guard, bringing them up over sort of the eye line, looking out throughout those arms, and just trying to keep yourself safe. And the way that we talk about this and the way that I explain this in classes is this isn't necessarily the best and ultimate way to defend someone to come in and strike, but it is what you want to go to when you're getting controlled, right? So when all else fails, if you want to block and intercept, that's fantastic. And I think those are better ways of defending. But when that line of defense breaks down, you need to have something that is simple and more structural that creates less need for kind of what you were saying, the reaction, because reaction is always more difficult than action. So if I can just shield and bring those hands up to a high guard, like I said, we call it shielding or like creating a shell, or sometimes we say tanking up. That's like the very first thing. And that gives us basics for like forward strikes, right? Anything that's coming in on that center line, get your hands up, and you hear that a lot. Elbows come in, chin comes down, body is round. For like round kicks and strikes and things like that, we call that a helmet guard. So from here, you're bringing that hand up, elbows pointing in. Again, your body is rounded, or we call it pong because it's what it is. But you've got pong, and you're again creating that structure that's solid and can absorb without having like the targets that they're trying to hit if they're trying to hit your chin, or bringing your elbow down if they're trying to hit the ribs, so that you're taking that damage on the outside of the arm. So that shield is always the first thing. So it's going from your base guard, like a tight guard, to a high guard or a helmet guard on one side or the other, is sort of the first line of defense, because it's not perfect. And you can talk about theory, in a bunch of lights. But at the end of the day, if you're starting to get overwhelmed, whether it's in a ring or, bad situation out in the world, and you get caught off guard and you're behind that 8 ball, you're not able to catch or control somebody's arms. You got to have something that gets you safe, where you can take a quick moment to assess and figure out what to do next.
What to do, right?
That's what we use.
Do you have online courses or anything?
I do online training one-on-one, but I don't have.
You break stuff down so well. You need to consider doing that. Like literally a stance course and this course and a 3 regulation, seriously. It's
on the docket. It's
well,
it's been I've been piecing that together for a little while.
Good.
I can't say that it's out or anything like that. I will say I do believe, because when I signed up for it, the first thing that popped up, I believe, was your course on the dojo.com. So that's where I got that, and
got it.
I was starting to build that out, and the first thing that popped up, I was like, I'm pretty sure I know that guy.
Who's this?
This is an awful handsome instructor.
Back at you, brother. Beautiful man.
So I do eventually want to build out like an online curriculum and an online course for this stuff.
I think you would kill it, because right now you're helping me right now figure out a better way to break down some stuff to some of my newer students. And I've been teaching, around the same time. Well, I think I've been teaching teaching about 10 years now. Yeah. So I'm constantly learning, and your 3 regulations is great. It's kind of similar to something I do, but I'm going to take it from you. So
yeah, please, man, spread it. All I'm looking for is for the community to grow, right?
Yeah, no, but
that's part of why I like talking to other instructors and keeping the connections, like from you and I for years, from competing with each other to being friends, and then being able to see what you're doing and what other people are doing, and it's super inspiring for me. And I do it all the time. Like I try to always stay with that empty cup and constantly let other people show me what they have and listen and say, I really like that. I can take that and tweak that a little bit and make it work perfect for this. So I do focus a ton for myself on how to present information and how to teach. That's something that's really important to me. And that's something like I try to don the title of coach, right? The idea of being a coach over being like an instructor or a teacher. Like you can teach material, but you coach people. And so understanding how to break something down or organize information that is going to best get what you want out of it across is a whole art in itself that I've really tried hard to focus on. So I appreciate
I really think you've done a tremendous job at that. And I'm glad you drew that line, because there is a difference of instructor and coach, and that's a really important line to draw and understand. The instructor typically is the one that's telling the individual what to do, and the coach is typically the one that's telling and showing and asking. So, and kind of leading by example, but also leading with information and philosophy as well. So they have a little bit more rich information, and I think you're doing that. Because just within your basics, you're telling me about. So let's go back. So the guards. So that's the first line of defense. What would be the second line of defense, like parries and stuff like that?
Yep, intercepting. So how to block. And again, terminologies really just depends on your lineage, your school, your whatever you want to say. Everyone's got their own term. We're all talking a lot of the same stuff. So for us, like that shield is the first thing, because that's what you're going to go to at the end when you're having a hard time. Second is to build out the reaction, to intercept. And the idea that we have for intercepting is, it's like building a bridge. There's one side of the river, there's another side of the river. It's not connected, but when something reaches out, you want to reach out and build that bridge. So we talk about what we call like cover or repel, like blocking to the inside or to the outside. And the reason that I find that as a deeper level of defense is because just what you were saying, it's a reaction. It's more reaction. It's a bigger movement. Even if the difference is, here to here reaching out and intercepting is a bigger movement, which means you have to react quicker and you have to tell your body to move to find that timing to intercept and keep you safe. So trying to catch punches with blocks, to keep it simple, just blocking, reaching out and stopping a straight punch, and whether it's a parry or a redirect or a cover, whatever you want to call it. And being able to stop kicks and things like that is like the second level of defense in terms of how we break it down. You shield and then you intercept or, block on the outside. Someone coming in, you bring your hand out, redirect it off. And we try to go with the softer blocks over,
anything hard.
Just stylistically for us, but same concept. That's second stage.
Nice. Is there a third?
Of course, there's a third. Third is head movement.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the reason that I think of this as something that is a little bit different is you have to use it a bit more wisely, because if you overutilize head movement, you can put yourself in a bad area, right? Like the easiest thing is punch comes in and I slip and bring my head way down, and a kick comes in and takes my teeth out. So I have to be aware of like how to use head movement within whatever sport or style or whatever you want to call it is appropriate to use. But it's the same concept. It takes a bit more, in my experience and my opinion, to move your body and your head in a reaction to really get everything to move, because there's a lot to good head movement, right? It's
there's a ton.
Tip your head. It's body alignment, structure, everything, all those angles,
a lot of stuff.
And you got to know at that point, we're assuming maybe like more footwork has been developed and understanding of movement has been developed, and you have to utilize that together. But getting your head out of the way is tough. And you certainly see masters of this in all sorts of sports. I mean, look at boxing, look at guys like Canelo, man, he's back and forth, and we're talking like centimeters of just turning your head on that hook, or, you know, bringing your head and just feeling like that glove grazed your ear and being able to counter with it and stuff like that.
Canelo is just a monster, by the way.
Absolutely. Amazing
athlete. I mean,
to watch, regardless of what you're interested in.
I've seen him move with his hands down, and he just moves his head, and the guy is just like, I'm like, what? It doesn't make sense, but you know.
That's it. And
he's a real life Neo, you know?
Yeah, for sure, man. He is dodging things that I didn't even see coming watching it from the outside, let alone being, you know, a foot away from that hand that's being fired off at 1,000,000 miles an hour at your face.
Right.
But the idea being kind of to that point, like it frees up your hands a bit. So when you talk about countering and stuff like that, if you're moving your head and you're not tying up your hands on a block, your hands are also free to do something else. So it does give you a bit more in terms of option, though it is a difficult skill to build out. So it's a little bit later on in the curriculum. And it's something that we talk about right away, because all of these things, this is just one way of breaking things down, right?
Of course.
Shield, you block, you move your head. Ideally, you're using all of these, not just one, but in terms of what's realistic in maybe somebody's training, you know, some people might pick it up great, but
you have to build skill in each of them, just like a meter of skill, right? So I need to be a certain percentage of this and certain percentage of that in each one of those before I can perfect, you know, the next level. Because to me, the next level, I mean, you may only have 3 of these, but the next level to me in my head would be coupling that with your offense, right? So am I correct? Is that where you would take it, or is there another step?
Oh, no, absolutely. So for us, or the way that I think of it is I also maybe add on like footwork.
Oh yeah.
Right? This becomes kind of like what I said, everything is leading up to these end goals that we have to have some sort of metric to build out. Like I feel better doing this, then I feel better doing this, feel better doing this. But the idea of if you can move.
Footwork would be not a fourth, but it would be another one. So you have stance, defense kind of, and then footwork. Are you putting defense and footwork in the same?
I would say defense and footwork as like, you could say it's the fourth, right? So the idea is this, someone goes to throw something and you're gone from where they think it's going to land, right? You, again, at this point are utilizing all your other things. So you're using head movement, blocking and shielding along with footwork, and it becomes this bigger and bigger bubble of defense,
right?
In terms of like really what you're looking for applicable skill. If I can be gone by the time that punch lands, like I'm off, I've cut an angle, I've created space for myself. That's going to be ideal instead of just, you know, letting somebody come in and manage the space and go back out. So we talk about this concept of occupying the center door. We talk about it all the time in push hands. It's like, who's got that control of this mutual center and coming into that sort of inside bubble. And footwork is, again, a very difficult thing. It's a maybe easy concept to start talking about, but in full application at speed and sparring or whatever you want to say, it's tough to see, let's say a jab coming in, and you've got, you know, this much space for it to land, to tell your body to move its entire weight, everything out of the way, just as a defensive maneuver. But as you get better with combining and kind of going up and down that ladder of, you know, using your shield and using your blocks, your, you know, bridges, and using your head movement, now adding that footwork kind of completes this circuit where you're now able to control occupying that center and countering. There's like a base concept that one of my coaches, Kung Lee, says all the time, which is make them miss, then make them pay, right? When they go to throw something, punch, kick, whatever it is, make them miss whatever they want to hit and then make them pay for it. So you're using all your defense to now support your offense, right? And everything becomes kind of full circle.
So who are your teachers? Your traditional teachers, and maybe anything further than that?
So I did when I was very, very young, I did like Kempo karate. It's where a lot of people started. And I did that for 4 or 5 years. I mean, I was like 4 years old.
Yeah. But it got your feet wet, you know.
Yeah, it introduced me to the martial arts world, even without knowing anything. It was more like crazy little kid. Parents were like, "You need to go do something."
Yeah, it was
get out of the house.
Expensive daycare, you know.
Yeah, put your energy somewhere else. Little did they know it set me on a path for the rest of my life.
Right.
But when I ended up, I took like a little break from that when I was young, and then I ended up switching to doing all the Chinese martial arts. My first coach was Paul Averill from Averill's Martial Arts Academy in Concord, New Hampshire. And he at the time was teaching both Kung Fu and Tai Chi, like traditional Chinese martial arts, as well as boxing and kickboxing. I think now he really only focuses on the boxing and kickboxing and some Tai Chi. But that the gym is like a pretty prominent boxing and kickboxing gym. That was my start. What's that?
Oh, so you said Cochrane?
Averill's Martial Arts in Concord, New Hampshire.
Concord, okay.
Concord, yes, that's where I'm originally from.
Oh, nice.
And
is there anything out there?
There's a boxing and kickboxing gym. You know, Concord's the capital, and it's pretty small. There's not a whole lot there. You know, I'm sure there's things to do, but Boston was always like, if we were going to do something, I'd go to Boston because it's only a little ways away from here. So that was my start in Chinese martial arts, and actually starting with Sun style Tai Chi was my first Tai Chi style, which I still like. I competed with and things like that. And one of my teachers was Dr. Yang Jingming, who had a school here in Boston for years. The headquarters school, I think, was here for like 25 years in Jamaica.
He's more famously known, I believe, because I've heard that name before.
Yes, Dr. Young's very well known.
Yeah.
He has a lot of publications, a lot of books, a lot of DVDs. He was really well known for his China, which was my initial interest. I like the joint locking. And
you know, where's my China book? I think I have a book of his, actually.
Yeah, is it the analysis of Shaolin China?
Yeah.
It's like the China Bible. Every martial artist I think I've ever met pulls that book out at one point. It's like,
this whole thing?
Yeah.
Where'd that come from? No.
I've worked with tons of groups that were like, oh, look at this. We got all these, you know, there's a huge list of all these amazing China. That's definitely like, that was my introduction to him as well. And so my first teacher, Coach Averill, had worked with him in the past when he was younger, and there was a program where he was opening up a facility out in California, out in the mountains, to do this like full-time training program. People went out there and lived with him, trained all day, every day for 10 years straight, like real hardcore stuff. And he sent it to me and said, you know, if I was your age, if I was in your position, I would try to get out here. This thing is amazing. I know that the quality is good. He was one of my teachers. You should really check these guys out. And I had wanted to check them out for a long time just because I was so interested in the China, and like I had always heard about YMAA, especially being in New England. Like Young's Martial Arts Association in Boston was like a staple for the Chinese martial arts community here, and all those books and DVDs from YMAA Publishing came out of there. He's pretty well known. And we have international schools. We have schools all over the world for YMAA. It's a really wonderful organization that's got like this fantastic community built around it internationally. So I started going down to Boston and doing just like some seminars and stuff, and kind of getting to know everybody here. And our styles of like Kung Fu were very similar. So I was able to pick everything up pretty quick. I had never really done. One of the other styles was White Crane, which was totally new to me, and I was very interested in it. And when I started doing it, there's a real depth to it because it's a soft, hard style. So all this principle and all this information that I was getting from the Tai Chi side of things was also applying here, where I had always kind of thought of like Kung Fu and Tai Chi as these big separate things. One's hard and one's soft. And then there was this nice middle ground. I was like, oh, all my stuff makes sense now, all the way across the board. So I loved it. So I started going down and training at YMAA for a few years, kind of up and down. And at one point I would go down on a Friday and I would stay in Boston all through the weekend till Monday, train on the Monday morning class, and then head back out. And
oh my God.
that kind of got me when I met Dr. Young and everybody from there. I started going out to California and training with them out in that facility. I didn't do the full-time program, but I was able to basically work and give myself a little, nest egg to be able to go out there for like a month or 2 months at a time and just train full-time with him, directly under him and with the students of the retreat center program. And then I would go back.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was, it's Kung Fu Mountain. I mean, you're out in misty mountains, with, this old Kung Fu master. And
I feel like I'm in a movie right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, don't get me wrong, the training is grueling. You're sore constantly. I remember at one point waking up and being like, I slept on like a mat on the ground, basically in a cabin. And I was like, I can't physically push myself up. My body was so sore. I was like, I need to like roll to the side. And I got a staff and I like put the staff in the jamb of the door and like pushed myself up. Like I was so sore. It was, like mind-numbingly repetitive, but I loved it. I was
I get it.
All about that.
He seems like it was very traditional, wasn't concerned about, getting students. He was concerned about giving the quality.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And his whole thing was, I had been in the city for years, chasing people to train. And then finally he got to a point, he was like, I'm going out into the mountains. If you want to train, you come find me. I'm done trying to find you. You got to come find me. So,
that's the way to go.
Went out and did it. So it was great. It was a fantastic experience.
Yeah.
I did that for a good number of years, kind of back and forth. I had moved to Chicago in the kind of in between and was teaching for another school out there. And then in, I think, 2013, I did some competition. I was also doing some Sanda and stuff in the Midwest and out in California and competing. And I had done, I don't remember what competition it was, but I ended up meeting my current striking coach, who's Kung Lee. And Coach Kung was always like kind of growing up in all the Kung Fu magazines and Black Belt magazine and stuff, as like the Sanda King, the King of Kung Fu. And he was like one of the first sort of big names to do a lot of combat sport with this Chinese martial arts style of Sanda, and transitioned to MMA. And he was a Strike Force champion, and then he made a transition later on into the UFC. And so he kind of like paved the way for this style and this sort of methodology of training. And I happened to meet him out there at an event and just tried to like stay in touch with him. And then a few years, I kind of reconnected and started training with him, because my Sanda system and his Sanda system were very, very close to, or very, very similar. And I had done a couple of like sessions with him or whatever. And he said, you've got a great foundation. I'd love to work with you. And I was, oh, of course, this was like an idol of mine, that I had seen in these magazines and movies and stuff forever. And I was like, of course, I would do that. So I started.
I'm gonna check my calendar. Just hold on.
Maybe I can pencil you in to start working.
It's like, no, I'm going.
World-renowned combat sports specialist and actor, but and he really started to coach me and kind of fine tune everything that I had. And I think that was sort of the reason that we linked up, was I wasn't necessarily learning a bunch of new stuff, but he was really able to help me take my understanding and my level of not just of my personal skill, but understanding the material and how to teach it and how to apply it for competition and to prep fighters and things like that. And really helped me fine tune my game there. And I still work with him now as my primary striking coach.
Oh, nice.
So I was doing the traditional stuff, and then I started working with Coach Kung to kind of continue to go forward with my combat sports stuff. And then
do your students now know him, or like have they seen him, or do you do seminars with them, or?
Yes, actually. So we, again, our curriculum is the same, and like we test with like a belt system that also comes from his system, like a system that I had tested out through. So over the pandemic in particular, everything went online, right? So we were doing a lot of stuff on Zoom and things like that. So a good number of the folks here were able to link up and like do a session with him and try to get like some seminars and stuff like that scheduled out and things like that. So hopefully he'll be out here in the spring to kind of, you know, get in the mix and stuff like that, which is fantastic. But he's been an amazing resource for folks here that were interested in competing and stuff like that, because he's done it all. And
he's got the mind for it and the knowledge and experience.
And I mean, he's a fantastic coach. He really is able to see, you know, we've done everything from like setting up a camera and doing sparring rounds and have him say like, this is where you're at, this is where you need to go. Like, you want to start working these principles more, or, you know, you got to work on these types of counters. You got to watch these habits. He's got a really amazing eye for that stuff. So being able to, you know, get a couple of folks here and, you know, I'm training them, and then having that resource has been absolutely.
I mean, you could take someone's game to the next level with that sort of information.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's been fantastic. On top of that, kind of again, when the pandemic started, I needed to get active myself. I was like super sedentary for a few months there, where like I've been doing this my whole life. So all of a sudden not having a gym to go to,
I know,
not really going out much or having people to train with, just kind of like killed my personal training. And I needed to start doing something. So I started doing more sessions with him just for myself. But I also got linked up with my dude, Lavelle. So Lavelle Marshall, who was from New York, or he was training out of New York, is I think a 5-time US Shuai Jiao champion that ended up moving to China and Inner Mongolia to wrestle full time. So to learn Shuai Jiao.
You gotta be good to go wrestle full time.
Oh yeah. I mean, Lavelle is great. I mean, if you've ever seen anything, if you look him up, he's just.
I'll have to look that up. Let me put that in my, what is it, Lavelle?
Yeah, Lavelle Marshall. I think his Instagram and Facebook handle is Rebel in the Wind Shaolin. The stuff that he's doing is super, super impressive. But he moved out there and started doing Bohk, which is the Inner Mongolian style wrestling.
Yeah.
And those are if you've ever seen, like we posted like the leather jackets with like the studs and the metal emblem on the back.
Yeah.
It looks like armor because it kind of came from armor. They used to flip the armor around and wrestle in it. This is what the Mongolians wrestle with. And he started learning that, and he started a company and started trying to get this information out to the West because it's a super rare style.
Yeah.
So we started doing online sessions with him about 2 years ago with his coach, Huha, who's an Inner Mongolian wrestler and coach out there. And again, like it's not really ever come out of that region of Inner Mongolia. Like you don't see Inner Mongolian wrestling really anywhere. You might see a couple of documentaries about it, but there's no schools for it anywhere in the world or anything like that. And so we started training with that. And I started working, kind of having Lavelle coach me with some Shuai Jiao, because all of my wrestling foundation is Tai Chi. And I've done some of like the Baoding Shuai Jiao stuff.
Yeah.
Working with the jacket. A few of the folks that, you know, I'd trained with from all our previous groups had sort of like the Taiwanese Shuai Jiao background, but only really dabbled in it here and there. It was more like we do all of this, you know, takedown practice, and then you just kind of don the jacket and go for it. And figuring out how to do like the gripping and stuff like that, he's really helped up that game and just try to bring the quality and the understanding in the US for jacketed wrestling up. And then we started doing the Mongolian wrestling because it's a very interesting style. There's no weight class, there's no time limit, there's no like terrain limitation. You wrestle outside as long as you can, or as long as you have to. It's a very high stakes thing. If anything but your feet touch the ground, you're out for the whole competition. So It's kind of the old warring style of like you show up on the battlefield and you fight who you fight, right?
Yeah.
And
Not gonna lie, that sounds kind of enticing and scary at the same time.
Yeah, it's a very interesting approach to training and wrestling, which I quite like. But I've been working with those guys straight from Inner Mongolia for the last couple of years, trying to up my wrestling game and to try to bring this very rare and unique, but absolutely amazing and beautiful art into kind of what we do for our wrestling and our Chinese wrestling, and try to like mix it to make something a bit new here for the States, because we just don't see it, and the level of like competition is not always as high in the States as it is maybe other places for Chinese wrestling. So
I can relate to that tremendously, because I've been trying to create jujitsu and Tai Chi together, and I'm calling it Chi-Jitsu.
Like that.
Right, yeah. That's trademarked by me, guys, so don't know. You know. But yeah, I've been working on something like that, because I feel like those other arts that are rare like that, or that have some benefit like that, need to be molded into what we're already doing. So I think, so for the last 2 years, you've been working on Mongolian wrestling.
Yes.
That's intense, man. That's not like a
it's been a very interesting journey. That, as a side note, when I was like 15 or 16, I took a trip to China by myself for like 2 months, just to go, not to train specifically, but I just wanted to like better understand like the culture and understand kind of where these arts were coming from. And I made my way to Inner Mongolia, out and into the grasslands, and I put on this jacket and I wrestled with these Mongolians. And Mongolians are the best wrestlers in the whole world. They're just absolute animals at even like, everybody wrestles. It's totally ingrained part of their culture. They might not even say they're wrestlers unless they're professional, but it's like everybody wrestles.
It's what you do.
It's what you do. You ride horses, shoot bows and arrows, and wrestle. It's like the 3 pillars of their culture they talk about all the time. But I did it. Like I actually did this Inner Mongolian wrestling as a kid or as a teenager. But at the time I didn't appreciate it. I was like, well, this isn't Kung Fu. So I don't like it. And just kind of like, I did terrible. I got thrown. I never threw anybody. And I left. I came back and I was like, oh yeah, everybody, must know. Like I was just some teenager from Hampshire that made it all the way out and did this like Mongolian wrestling. I was like, everybody must know what this is. And it wasn't until later that I realized, like, every time I've explained, like, the wrestling with the leather jackets that are like sleeves and belts with like the metal studs and metal emblems on the back, they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, what do you mean? Doesn't everybody know what this stuff is? And
no, you just got a specific experience that many people, if not, you might be the only one.
Yeah, it really, it was very, very interesting
that got in there,
So now I've been really putting my personal training focus on trying to refine Bohk, this Mongolian wrestling. And the goal is, once things settle down and borders start to open, is to go over there and to kind of do some training camps and stuff with my guy Lavelle and his company, with Ariel and Ayutana. They make this company called Bohk and Ayin, and with our coach Huha that we've been working online with, and start to have like this exchange kind of coming out of that area, since it's really never happened. It's really stayed in that region. But so that's what
I want to be a part of that, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, when we start making those pilgrimages out that way and doing these camps, we're putting it out. We're letting everybody know.
Let me know.
I would love
to be a part of that.
Yeah, we're gonna go. So we've got we've got some of the jackets and stuff here, and we have a little team. We have like a Shuai Jiao team that.
So you're starting to build on it now.
Oh yeah, for sure. We're really trying to lay the foundation, and it's something that we have been trying to teach here, very much with the approach of like, I'm also still learning this art, and let's learn this together. And I know enough, because again, a lot of what it is all the same stuff we've been talking about in Tai Chi principle. Especially when you're talking about, like, again, no weight class. If someone's 200 pounds heavier and a foot and a half taller than you, you can't just say no. You got to wrestle them. So you can't muscle. You can't just brute your way through.
It's not gonna work for everybody.
So you got to understand the sensitivity and building the right kind of motion and stuff like that. So I've had that understanding for years. So it's been a nice a really nice transition to be like, oh, this is like a great way to actively apply in like real time in a resistive match and in a very controlled and fun way, being able to do all of that same stuff with this like new style that we're all trying to learn. So that's been a big part of this gym, is trying to be a facility and a place where this is going to start building out a bit foundationally, to start bringing it to more people, and people want to come and train with us and wrestle and put the jackets on, or if they've got their own, they can come in and try something maybe they've never tried, and start to see the value in some of that idea of being soft and what it means, and how to really use root, and you know, do something other than what maybe they've just seen on TV or on YouTube, because it's a very interesting thing. So that's another part of like the project of what this
project, man. Ty, what are you not doing, brother? You know,
I'm doing all I can, I guess.
No, you seem like you're 110% invested in what you are and what you're about and what you have, and I respect that, because I know there's some people that are, you know, their attention is divided, and it dilutes the art, and I don't see that from you. You are what I would consider a true instructor. That's why you're on the podcast. I want people to be able to find this, look at someone like you, and you know, represent the art. Sanda, Tai Chi, all those arts, I think you represent well. And is there any parting words of advice that you want to say for, let's say, beginners or instructors, whatever, anything that you want to throw out there?
I would say the biggest thing, if you're talking advice for beginners, intermediate, or advanced practitioners, is it's sort of two things. One, you got to keep the journey going. You got to keep stepping forward. And I say this all the time because, you know, we've got students and folks that will be out for a little while and go, you know, I really want to get back into it. And I always say the training is always there. The training is there. It doesn't matter what you're training, Tai Chi, Kung Fu, you know, Sanda, Bohk, Shuai, Jiao, whatever. The training is always there. It's just waiting for you to pick it back up and keep going. You know, so it's just, you got to start that journey, right? Is kind of corny as it sounds. It starts with that first step. And that first step could be coming back from something. It could be starting something you've never done, but you just got to keep carrying it forward. And the other big thing that I would say is you got to learn how to enjoy it. If you're not, you know, finding the value in what you're doing, you're going to have a really hard time, and you're going to get burnt out really easy. So you're going to have to, it's sometimes something that you have to work at to remember why you're doing something, or why you're training through those tough times. And, you know, the plateaus, I certainly have them with myself. And
oh my gosh, I can relate.
But remembering that, you know, this is a big community that you have a ton of support from, again, whether it's just like your school, your gym, or it's the martial community at large. There's a lot of people that are also experiencing this journey and can relate. And you want to know that, you know, there's good stuff coming out of this. So you've got to enjoy that journey. Like, make sure you're taking the time to appreciate sort of what you're doing, and keep moving it forward. Like I said, same thing goes for coaches and instructors.
Yeah.
You know, we I think a lot of times can get stuck into the trap of like, well, I've learned all of this stuff, so I'm done. Right. It's like, well, you know, then you're not, didn't you enjoy learning? Like, isn't that why you're doing this? Like, don't you want to play and experiment and learn more and see other perspectives, and, you know, continue to progress? Maybe your system, you've learned all the material here, but like, can the skill get better? And even not just like physical skill, but understanding, the depth of understanding of the arts at large, and enjoying it, right? You got to enjoy it. If you don't like what you're doing, it's going to come out in how you teach, and it's going to come out into the students and things like that. So, you know, take a second to appreciate it, and, you know, keep moving it forward, and keep it growing in, whatever realm you're in for the martial world.
Well, thank you, Mr. Tye Tonkin. I appreciate it. SIFU coach Tye Tonkin.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
For having me on, man. This was awesome. It was super fun to chat and reconnect. And
definitely, brother.
You know, this is awesome. I'm stoked for all the stuff you got going.
I will let you know when this is posted. I'm excited, man, and I appreciate you giving me your time and your energy and all that good stuff. So thank you, brother.